Hold on a second. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Inside Fashion Design, our weekly community conversations. Very excited this week to have Jen Phillips, who is the president of the Association of Sewers and Designers. No, help me out, Jen. What is it?
Yes, Association of Sewing and Design Professionals.
Professionals is the last P. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And we're here today just to chat live with you and have a conversation about the organization and your experience and what you do. And then open for questions. People are free to join in as they have, if they think of a question, you can enter it through the chat or just raise your hand or interrupt. We're here just to have a communication, a conversation with you. So, and now I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Sloan, who's going to do further introductions.
Hi, welcome everybody. Good morning. I'm very excited to be here today to chat with Jen Phillips, who is a really great designer that's here in the Portland metro area. Her brand is called Nicole Couture. She is currently the serving president of the nonprofit that is called Association of Sewing and Design Professionals. She's been the president-elect since 2022. I've known Jen since we met in 2018 when we were both in the Fashion Next upseller or accelerator program called Up Next. Since then, we've been friends and remained in contact. We've also done another show together in 2019, which is Fringe. And she is a believer in the slow fashion movement, which I think we all really respect as like an ethical fashion forum. She's been published like a lot of times. Most recently, we're probably going to talk about the sewing challenges and publications that she's been in called Threads magazine. She also does public speaking panels and is overall just very engaged in the fashion community in a way that is upholding really beautiful creative standards and like the highest sewing professional standards. And Jen, do you want to introduce yourself and just give us some background information that I might have missed, like where you're from, if you're classically trained or if you taught yourself, that kind of thing?
Sure. I'd like to start off. It's great to be here. Thank you very much, Sloan and Britta, for inviting me to be able to share about my business and about this group that I work with. I'll sort of give a short introduction and get to where Sloan jumped in and where I met them. I was taught to sew by my mother at an early age, but she really didn't like anything other than crafts. And so it really sort of left me on my own to figure out everything that involved a sewing pattern and fitting and different sort of fibers and all that. And I really just sort of had this innate curiosity that drove me to play and really just dive in with both feet and get involved to where in high school, I started sewing for friends for prom and bridesmaids out of my basement in high school. And you know, early projects that were, you know, probably bare minimum quality to be getting paid for it. But I just couldn't believe that, you know, something that I enjoyed doing, like let me help support myself. So I really dove in and taught myself most of the sewing things through self-learning, a lot of book reading and buying garments at the thrift store and taking them apart to figure out like why one manufacturer would put something together one way and why another one was put together another way. And then even using sort of the labels and the brands as those guides of going, oh, well, I can see why this quality is better than this and why this is. And so I worked in a fabric store my senior year of high school, and my dad remarried, and his bride-to-be asked me to make her wedding gown, and I decided to make that my senior project for high school and delved into, why does water bead on polyester, and, how are fabrics, created, and delved into all the technical aspects of it, while sort of in the background always assumed I was going to continue on to college and was anticipating getting an engineering degree. And met my husband and started dating in that senior year of high school, sort of threw out those plans out the window and decided to dive in and figure out what I could do as a designer using sewing sort of as my skill set to get me through. And heard about and joined a group called, at the time, Professional Association of Custom Clothiers. And they had their annual educational event had come to Portland. And there was all these people that I had read about in books and in magazines coming to Portland and talking about how they made a living sewing or teaching sewing or designing and I jumped in with both feet and have been a member of this group since 1998. And it, more than anything in my life, has shaped how I run my business. And part of this association talks about, following a code of ethics in your business to really be able to say, this is how I treat my clients, this is how I treat my colleagues, this is how, and in a way, we need to start reevaluating, because it's needs to start talking about how we treat the planet as well. Because this is a group of people with whom I can sort of, hash around that idea of, how conscious do I want to be in, being really time consuming layout and being as fabric efficient as possible with this fabric so that I can, leave a remainder untouched and be able to use for something else. Or when do I balance being able to sort of batch cut something so I can make it faster and then less expensive for the client, but then generate a lot more waste? Like, how do you balance that with, wanting to run a business in a way that sort of still satisfies those business priorities you have and still being profitable? And unfortunately, there's the idea that you're a starving artist. And and most of the purpose behind this group is to say that that doesn't have to be true. You can run a business the way that you want to run a business. You can do that and not have to sacrifice being profitable, being able to make a reasonable living. It just it's a harder balance to find. So in 2015 or so, I got to a point where I'd spent about 15-20 years doing bridal work, and that takes sort of a lot out of you emotionally. And I was ready for a shorter break. And so I decided I wanted to push myself creatively and started entering design competitions. And started with one that's local here to Portland that was called Modified Style. And it really talked about, how do we, what do we deal with all this fabric that would otherwise go to waste? And it was a challenge to local designers to take fabric that someone would have otherwise thrown away and create garments out of it. And I entered their section for professionals and put together a collection out of the fabric that I got. And, when you open it up, you're like, what am I going to make with this, plaid upholstery fabric? It's like a plaid beige and, burgundy and tan with a micro fleece fused to the backside. Like, what am I going to do with this fabric?
That's like a Project Runway challenge.
In a way, and it was to push you out of that, and I adored it. I loved it. I made an amazing trench, and I'm so sad it went away after that event, because sort of the bonus of that is once you have that message and be able to talk about that, they auction them off at the end of the evening, and it goes towards another charity. But then you have this event that you get to talk about and share about, because it guides my talk with clients towards that. I talk to my clients and tell them, no, I'd like us to go to Mill & Fabric so that you can go see them and touch them. And I know this is the fabric we're buying, because I don't want you to spend, this amount of money on something that you have to then have paid to ship to you. And you don't know if you're going to like it when it gets here. And then it's just being wasted. So, this is how I do this. And even something that's like this is what it turns into. And just use that as a jumping point to have discussions with my clients. and really decided that, you know, that was where my business was turning, was sort of being almost more of an activist through my business, to be able to, you know, talk with people while they have alterations and go, well, this is why it has to be done this way, and this is, and being able to fight those objections on price, because someone says, oh, but I only paid, you know, $30 for these jeans. What do you mean it's going to cost $25 to fix them or fit them? And you know, be able to have those one-on-one discussions with people, because otherwise I feel like it's really easy sort of in general to sort of walk away and not have to pay attention to some of those bigger sort of fashion eco-related discussions, when, you know, you can just grab something and you're like, yeah, great, it fits, it's fine. And no one else is saying, but, you know, well, you know, you value my talents, right? You love looking at all these beautiful things that I create. Those people are just as skilled as I am. They just don't have the same opportunities. So, you know, let's have this discussion and force, you know, I probably make a lot of my customers uncomfortable, because I feel like that's discussions that I'm in the place and time to have with mine. And part of that involves stepping out and making these. So as a part of the prize for that win in that competition, that was a fast track to the final round for the Fashion Next Accelerator program. And I sort of felt a little bit that they had to let me in. So I'm gonna take us through in a little bit, and I'll show you some of my designs. But that's sort of where I met Sloan and got to see all their fabulous designs, and you know, been friends since.
I'm going to throw in a comment. I loved what you were saying about, you know, how the customer, they may not understand the pricing. And I think a huge part of what we're all working on in the industry today is educating the consumer, because I don't think they're used to it. And, you know, they're used to fast fashion, and they need a pair of jeans, they just go to the mall, they can pick up whatever. But if they take the time to work with someone like you, and then say they found a thrift store pair of jeans, and it was $10, and then they go to someone like you who can tailor it, it may cost them $50 or more, because you're spending, you know, 3 hours hemming it, maybe taking in the waste. You know, I don't think they understand. If they don't know construction, they're not like design people, you know, you have to rip that waistband off and maybe, you know, chop it or make it, you know, add fabric to it. But once they have that garment, like, it's customized to them, and now they have spent maybe $100 on an upcycled type of, you know, garment that they should be able to wear, you know, for a long, long time. So instead of buying more pants or more things, they're investing in that one item, get it really customized to them, and then it has a much longer life, and it's been repurposed. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done still. So I like that you, you know, you're admitting and you know, sharing the fact that some customers might get a little uncomfortable, because, you know, you're going to say, this is going to take me 5 hours and it's going to cost you $100 to do this. But I think as time evolves and the industry evolves, people get more used to it and get more comfortable with doing that kind of, you know, process for their wardrobe, instead of, you know, buying multiple fast fashion items and then they're throwing them out. So hoping, you know, in the future, people will really start to kind of change their thinking and get used to buying less, but investing in that piece and making it part of their wardrobe for a much longer life. So I think that was a really good call out.
Yeah, I think that's like the exact word there, is that education, because that's sort of that's the biggest hurdle between the large amount of people, especially when they come from hobby sewing, get to a point where they say, oh, it's impossible to make money doing sewing. Like, nobody wants to pay this. The fabric costs are too much. And, you know, it's a common complaint. And then, you know, I see on the other end of the spectrum, like, so many of my colleagues are just outrageously overwhelmed with business that, you know, they feel bad, like, not being able to serve enough clients. It's hitting just the beginning of bridal season. And you can tell, you can just tell by how often your phone rings, like, oh, another person's schedule just booked up, because the list just, it's become ever shrinking, that people that really focus and specialize in this. And it's even, gone further down in the pandemic, just because it was one of those, like, well, how do you do alterations for people if you're not allowed to be in the same room with strangers?
Yeah, and
like how
very close together.
it's like, okay, well, let's figure this out. And it just, so got to be where that's the place where we can make the biggest difference, is realizing that consumers do need education. They need someone to tell them, like, oh, it's going to take me 4 hours to do this. That is why it cost you this much. Instead of just saying, well, it's $100 because it's $100. And, if you balk at that, it's because you don't value my time. It's like, well, people need to be reminded, because it used to be something that was just a hobby, like, oh, grandma did it, or my aunt sewed stuff for me. And there still is that population that did it, but not as much as it used to, where there's still this gap of people that haven't begun to equate it with a valuable skill, which is exactly what this organization was founded for, was to get a group of business owners together and go, oh, well, it's really hard to do it on my own, but if you and me talk it over, and then we get a third, and then we have a group of us, let's have these bigger group discussion. Let's decide what we need to be able to educate people about. And this group that I work with, even at the beginning, built this document that's called the Standards of Quality. And it was for people who know how to sew, but are learning how to make a quality garment. And it broke it down just literal step by step, and said, okay, when you're putting in a zipper, these are the things that you need to, know. Okay, well, the zipper doesn't go too far past the waistband. It doesn't, and it just lays out, step by step, for a hem, for a seam, for a zipper, for a buttonhole, for the button, for, an ease in a garment. It just lays out a base standard set of rules. And I sort of look at it a little bit like cooking. Like, you can know sort of the base things, but sometimes you really have to know all the rules to know when you could break the rules. And, there's probably nothing, more aggravating to a sewing teacher than, like, raveled, messy seams, unless it is meant to be there. If it is intended as a design and you've done something so that it's not going to continue raveling, and it's, it's a purposeful thing, then that's okay. But otherwise, no, you don't have raveled seams. You don't have seams that are too small or too wide. And it doesn't really tell you, the method that you have to use. It just gives you a set of rules to evaluate things by. And along those lines, they built an entire program that goes through and gives you the option to test your skills in 7 different modules, and be able to gain your accreditation, get a certificate for being a master sewing and design professional, so that, as a tradesperson, you have something to sort of demonstrate your skill to the public. There is also one for alteration. So there's master alteration specialist. So that, if you've never had the opportunity to go through and get a full, textile degree or business degree, you still have something you can test through and show off that, here are proof of my skills.
That's awesome. So you've been in this group, ASDP, for like a really long time, since '88, right? So everything that you're learning from not only like observing how, different manufacturers do different things and make different choices when producing garments and why they might do that, this probably really reflects on like the way that you run your business and your mission for your business, and also like what kind of role you plan on taking and what you would want to see more of in this nonprofit that you're currently the president of. So do you want to tell us more about like how this is, like what your mission is? Maybe not just as your brand mission, but as an artist as well.
So yeah, so once I got to the point, I started to taper off of the actual client work, bridal work, alterations that I was doing, and getting more into these design competitions. I realized that building these pieces and creating these things gave me something fun and exciting to be able to share with, you know, clients and even the public in general. And that gave me a vehicle to have a voice to be able to say, you know, yes, like as skilled people, it really is frustrating when people just automatically question, like, oh, why is it going to cost that much? It's like, well, you know, okay, I get you have no idea about putting a garment together, but you know, how can you literally like look at a pair of jeans and figure that it, you know, oh, somebody could have thrown that together and somehow make it cost $25. And it's just unreasonable when you try and look at it. And I realize I have to see that through the view as someone who's sewn all of their life, and you know, whose hobby is like, you know, staring at people's clothes and trying not to touch their fabrics, and you know, found through this association so many other people that are of that same mind, and realized that yes, as an introvert, it makes me uncomfortable to kind of, you know, jump out and talk about my business and talk about myself and talk about, you know, my work in the way that it, you know, it's art and it's activism and it's, you know, it's personal expression, because there's a lot of people that go, no, you just do alterations, that's just work. But instead I, like, you know, Sloan, get to do super fun things. So I will come share them with you just like I share them with my clients. So this is my workspace. Hopefully it doesn't get too echoey as I go around. Some of the ideas that I worked with when I, you know, work within the association to talk to my clients is more about, yes, price and use, and what does clothes, what do your garments say about you? What do they mean to you? And a lot of that I found does tend to center around weddings and events and, you know, fun social things. So a lot of the work that I've done has to deal with kind of, you know, elaborate stories, so that when I participated in 2019 in Fringe, I really sort of had the idea of like, how do I talk about myself and my story in a way that I can then, you know, use that, and built this idea around playing and dress up, and made a whole collection that was based on the movie Labyrinth with David Bodie. And so really kind of focused on like dark colors, dark fabrics, but yet still have fun and whimsy. So this is a giant ball gown that we dyed and distressed, and then literally from the bottom up shredded it with our hands till it was just, you know, magnificently messy. And I pull that out all the time when I talk to actual brides and say, well, there's a reason why you never want to just zip your dress garment up right over your tulle dress and then just rip a giant hole in it. And I take this garment and just rip a hole in the tulle and say, you know, here. And so I have a zipper from a garment bag that I zip and unzip over this dress. And I have showed who knows how many hundreds of people now how you can break the coil open on a zipper and pull it open and then put it back together. So that if you've ever caught a zipper in something like that, you know how to break that zipper open. And then even if you have to go take that back to someone to get it fixed, you haven't ruined your garment.
Right.
And, you know, and it's just finding all those ways to go through and just find all those points to talk to people about. So the garment that shows in the background right here now is a ball gown that I put together for, and Sloan mentioned this earlier. There is a magazine called Threads, and it is sort of more of a hobby geared magazine towards sewists, but every year they offer our professional organization a design challenge and challenge our members to, you know, fulfill this design challenge. And then it shows in our October annual meeting fashion show. And then the winners get to be featured in this magazine. So I get to have this, you know, beautiful garment that I got to work on.
It's amazing.
And
blue
then I
one.
get to come back and say, oh yeah, see, I got to have this, you know, this whole little magazine spread, and I get to use this as a way to sort of have those difficult conversations in a way that is still fun, that still, you know, gets to play with fabric and really ties into that, oh, I always wanted to be a designer, you know, that little child in people that just love to play in art. And I still get to do that every day, and I'm so happy that I get to.
That is, and that one you showed me with the geode beadwork, is that the one, is that also for Threads?
That was also a Threads challenge. The theme for that one was you were supposed to design and create a garment based around the 4 elements. So there was a fire element, the water element. And so I made this garment based on the earth element. For during the 2020, when all my work had dissolved and I didn't have time, I had too much time for everything. And I will grab it. Which
It's so beautiful.
And covered the entire bodice of a cocktail dress in beadwork, to sort of echo the idea of geodes or a landscape rock strata, and then was able to go, oh well, by the way, you know, since I'm making it, I can just leave all the seams open so that everyone can actually see each individual stitch, because every single bead was sewn on by hand. So this one was one that won me a Finest Construction Award. So
wow. How long did it take to bead that?
About 60 hours.
Wow, it looks amazing. What was on the bottom?
So it's just a short cocktail length skirt, and it came with a 3/4 double-breasted jacket, so that when it's actually worn, all you see is just the tiniest little sparkles at the neckline.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Awesome. So where are you sourcing all your materials these days?
Like I mentioned briefly earlier, I really encourage most of my clients to work with local fabric. And if it's, you know, dead stock or limited stock, you know, even better, particularly with like bigger projects. If we're doing like a whole bridesmaids group, there's not a lot of option other than ordering. So I have a handful of vendors that I prefer to work with in both LA and New York.
That's awesome. And you probably don't need to source a lot of material when you're doing the alterations. You're probably working with what you've been given, right?
Yeah. There's very little. Sometimes there's, you know, bigger projects where you're really having to sort of re-engineer or support something, and then you're really looking for something in particular. There's a lot of work that I do where I'll start with just base, like silk chiffons or charmeuses, and do dye work to try and get something that matches as closely as possible.
Wow.
Because you can dye, you know, silk charmeuse in, I have a large mug, a large clear mug that I use, and I heat up water in the microwave. And then I have a whole line of like bell jars that I use, like old canning jars. So, you know, the barest amount of dye and water, and I'm dyeing just the littlest tiny scrap that I need. And then, okay, well, that wasn't quite right. Okay, another square and put it. And so then I have all my jars of reusable dye, and then also lots of different little scraps that I've dyed that didn't work. Okay, well, okay, that's too dark, put it in a pile, start over. And then I just have this collection. And I started doing that the same when I ended up with this murky like mix of colors towards the end, when it's like, okay, Brent, can't reuse that anymore. Turns into this mix of browns and grays, which then I throw all of my nettings in to get nude colors, like just all variations of nude colors. So when I'm doing work where we need to sort of put a sheer backer on something, so something's camouflaged, I have just the whole bucket of like all the ranges of, you know, tones that would match for all different skin tones.
Wow, that is so involved. I didn't even know that. Jesus, that's a lot of work. So what's a regular day in the life like when you're working from home right now in this amazing studio, by the way? I don't know if everyone saw the columns and the fireplace and the bay windows. It's amazing in there. So jealous. But like what's a regular day when you're working? What's it like for you these days?
So when I'm in this space and I'm working with clients, most of the time that I'm spending with them actually in person is about 10% of the time. And so most of my schedule is going to sort of revolve around when we've booked those in-person meeting days. And I'll typically try to limit that to 2 or 3 days during the week, so that, you know, even though this is a bigger space, it's still a working space. And so there's times where it's really not appropriate for clients to just kind of come into the mix, and because there is a limit to what you know, what amount of messiness, you know, people will sort of deal with, as far as just like, oh yeah, this is working conditions. Like, you know, I don't have an unlimited amount of space, and I have quite a bit of excess storage that, you know, dyeing fabrics and keeping them means I have no less than probably about 20 like large tote bins of scrap fabrics. And, you know, some of the nicer ones have to be interlaid with, you know, archival tissue paper so that the beads don't tarnish, and, you know, and they have to be rotated because they really shouldn't be like airtight. And so it's, you know, it's a project where at least every couple of weeks there's, you know, a whole heap of fabric in different places throughout the room. And it's like, okay, well, time for clients to, I got what I needed. Okay, they stack back in the closet, 6 tall, 4 deep, you know, and it's like, okay, it's put away for a little while, but, you know, I can't work with everything put away. So it's always sort of a balancing act, which is actually something that's gotten quite a bit better during the pandemic, because so many people then had to work from home. There was a lot more sort of understanding of what it takes to work out of your own home, and really, you know, still, you know, live there. You know, we have, our kids are grown, but, you know, I really, I see that a lot easier now than it was 10 years ago. There was a lot more pressure on how do you have to present your space when you are seeing clients in your own home, because there's always that sort of like, you have to not look like a grandma sewing in the basement for pin money. You have to present yourself, and maybe sometimes that went overboard, where, you know, where we all know now, like, oh, okay, yeah, I probably work in yoga pants, you know, 6 days out of the week, because, you know, those 2 days I'm seeing clients, maybe I'm a little more dressed up, but the other days, you know, I'm, you know, bundled up, crawling around on the floor, you know, looking at hemlines. And so, you know, as apart from meeting those client in those times, there's probably 2 of those days that are spent like diagnosing problems, and, you know, putting something on a mannequin and taking apart a seam enough where I can figure out when it needs to happen to put it back together. And then there's days where it's just all sort of like book work, and, you know, the not fun parts of running your business, like, you know, finishing your taxes and, making sure that, when you're looking at the work you did for the past quarter, that the projects you took, you actually billed the right amount of hours or, spent the right on the fabric allowances that you did. Like doing all those things that, you can't go years and years and years and then realize like, oh, I don't make any money doing jeans hems at $15. Why do I still accept them? Like maybe there's somebody else that does them faster and that is a profitable wage for them. But if you're not using commercial equipment, if you're not, set up to be able to pin 6 in a half hour and get them done like they split, probably not a very profitable wage for you when you're figuring, all of your overhead, any advertising costs, your insurance costs, your, all those things that, go into running it as a profitable business over, this is, glorified hobby because, it makes you a little extra money. It's really hard to split that line with people. There are a lot of people that treat sewing as, this, crafty side hustle. And, go to flea markets and, sell aprons for $15 and, and then just make something for making sake and then sell it for material costs. That is, one of those things where it confuses people because then they don't realize they're like, well, but I saw this, this designer, this, maker selling these, elaborate children's, tutu dresses for $45. What do you mean you're gonna charge me, $250? And it's like, well, they're not me. They're not here in Portland. There must be something. And I don't want to say, well, they're not paying themselves. But most of the times it seems like they're probably not paying themselves. They're enjoying doing it, but also sort of in probably, feeling undervalued at the same time. But, they've caught themselves in that, well, nobody will pay more than this amount, so I can't charge that. And, I just come back to, well, we can make beautiful things, but it still costs money.
Yeah.
It still takes time. And, it all comes back to me just, using this as an opportunity to talk to people and, tell them because it is fun. It is, I'm very enamored still with, being able to do this, as a job and share it with people.
I have a question for you, Jen. What advice would you give someone who is a sewer and is aspiring to do kind of what you do? What would be some advice that you could offer them to really set it up as a business and be profitable and how you've learned through experience and all the years, maybe someone's younger and wants to do this?
I think really, just taking it seriously as a business is the best step that you can take, whether you're starting off doing it under like your own name, under just a DBA, like it's pretty straightforward in most states to just start real small and say, I'm doing business under my own name. This is me. This is what I do. This is, I've covered my bases. I've made a business plan. I have, the minimum amount of insurance I need. If you're having clients come to your home, then, make sure either your homeowner's insurance or an additional rider is covering for anyone that comes to your home and falls, for your house floods and you lose clients' garments. Like it's a very minimum cost to know that you have those basics covered. And then third, I would say find a community, like find a group of people where you can say, hey, I took this client and I got myself in over my head. I need, advice. Like, what would you do in this situation? Or even just for that external support and go, oh, this is what happened. This is how I dealt with it. Like I still feel bad about it. And then you have a group of people that go, oh yeah, like I've done that. Oh, I've been in that same situation. Or this is what I learned from it, and sharing that with others in, you know, in a business space where people understand you, to not feel like you're out there on your own, because I think so many people, when they start in business, they feel like we're all competitors. And the reality is there's way more work than, you know, there is people to get it done. And I'm more happy sharing about someone else that can help someone that I can't, because then I know, like, that is, you know, that is helping support the entire community. Like, it's helping support others and share that, you know, oh yeah, I value this as a skill, and not just, you know, for myself, I value it for that person as well. Because I don't want to turn some away and tell them, oh, nobody else can help you if I can't help you. And then have them go, well, I guess that just isn't a thing anymore. And go, yeah, no, it's a thing. Hey, yeah, we got you. Let's help somebody. And really just getting involved.
Yeah, thank
Beautifully
you.
put.
That's great. Beautifully put. Yes. Yeah.
Stephanie, do you have any questions for Jen today? I know she's silent, but just
There she
offering.
is. There's Stephanie.
I have no questions for Jen, but I do quite admire her work. I've, you know, been in her studio and been involved with ASDP and seen how dedicated and driven she is. So she's definitely someone that I look up to and admire how talented she is. And, you know, here too, she's just got lots of great ideas and she's incredibly creative person. So I, you know, look forward to the future with her. Yeah, so I don't have.
Stephanie, since we have you on, could you share a little bit about what you do? We didn't get to your introduction in the beginning, but you're also local here and do some work in the sewing community as well.
Yeah, so I have a small company that I run out of my home called Love Stephanie. I create custom dresses for the most part for clients, and I do a lot of bridal alterations to sort of fill in the gaps. I've learned a lot about bridal gowns. I used to work at David's Bridal just for a small, you know, seasonal seamstress. And I did that to be able to really see inside of some of the dresses and gowns and really kind of study them and take them apart and learn about the clients too, and learn about what they're looking for, their needs are, the most common fitting issues with those types of garments. So yeah, now I do it out of my home, and I'm plenty busy with bridal alterations. I'm working on a dress right now. She's coming later to pick it up. So, but I'm trying to create a, more custom things, my ideas and not others' ideas. So slowly doing that.
I'm so envious of both of your studio spaces.
Yeah, I've got this wonderful
Yeah.
loft room up in the top of my house, and
That's so great.
it's certainly filled with junk and stuff and fabric and
and I totally get what Jen was saying about you have clients come over, but you've got a table that you're cutting something out and scraps everywhere, and then you're trying to look clean and organized. And
I know I've got a junk pile kind of, I don't know if you can see it. Oh, maybe you can't even see it, but yeah, it just looks quite cluttered in certain spaces, but I try to keep it at least presentable, because yes, people come up here with a lot of times with their bridal party, their mom or their friend, and I need a space for them to sit and actually walk around sometimes. So I try to keep it neat, but it's hard to when you have a bunch of stuff,
Yeah. Well, and you also teach sewing as well.
Yes, I teach beginning sewing students at Portland Fashion Institute. And I've been doing that for a few years now. And yeah, it's a great way to try to show new sewists and people who are interested in the hobby. And then some of the students, I have students of all ages. Some of them really want to get into fashion design and really want to, learn and create their own designs. And then some students just want to learn how to sew better, or, so I have kind of different levels of beginners. Some people have never seen a sewing machine ever before. They know nothing. And some have had dabbled in it, or, have stumbled through it. So it's really interesting to teach new sewists and have to go back in your mind and really basic. Go back to their level and explain things and show them the way to do it and what's proper and why. Tackling the sewing machine is probably the hardest part.
Yeah,
really
brand new to it, trying to figure that out,
and being able to troubleshoot and how to thread the machine properly and how to even just hold the thread and so it doesn't get sucked into the machine, or these things that I just do. It's muscle memory. I do it all the time, and it's no big deal, but to them it's really a big deal. And so to just go really step backwards and try to look at it from their perspective is really challenging for beginners. So
yeah, for
I
you
enjoy
it's
doing
just
that and going from the very start, very scratch, not making any acronyms or assumptions that they know what they're doing, because they don't. We're not born knowing how to sew. So, when they have questions, try not to make them sound like, oh, that's obvious. Well, it's not obvious. It's it's
they've never seen it before.
Yeah. So it's really great. It's really great to have a group of students that are really excited to learn how to just sew. We start with a little simple apron, and they, when they're finished with their apron, it's like, oh,
they're so excited.
Like they made a ball gown or something.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I really like doing it. And
that's
fantastic. I try to teach individuals sometimes too. I do private lessons when I can nab a student that's willing to come over here. And
that's great. Well, if people want to find you, can they just go to Portland Fashion Institute website and they'll see your name and your
Portland Fashion Institute has a website. I'm not sure what it is, pfi.com or something like that. But there's teacher profiles, and you can click on the teachers and learn more about them. But I really try to up my web presence as much as I can. I've got my own website. It's called Love Stephanie Apparel.
Okay.
And I try to make my website a place where a potential client can go and see what I've done, see what my work is, read a little bit about me, my bio, and then come to me and hopefully want something created for them. I also have social media, Facebook and Instagram, all Love Stephanie.
Awesome.
And I try to keep
send it to us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just send it to us, and we're gonna we can even discuss later. But I and even talk to you further, and maybe include you in the future. But I just wanted to ask one more question to Jen before we wrap up here. Sorry to interrupt you, but
oh no, thank you.
We're getting close to time. So
absolutely.
Jen, do you have what's upcoming this year for you? Like what should we be expecting? Do you have any more projects coming up, or anything in the future that we should look out for?
Again, it's just picking up for this year, so we'll see. Currently I'm working on a project that is 9 rainbow colored ball gowns for Westland High School that does their May Day festival. As soon as I get those out the door, I'm actually going to be starting on my challenge entries for this year's for the Threads competition. But as that's all secret judging, I can't share any of those. But we are really, as an organization, gearing up for our conference in Denver in October, where we have, a lot of our colleagues and other sewing professionals come and teach classes that are geared especially towards sewing professionals. It's one of the few places, like as an independent sewing professional, you can get in-depth, like high quality, level education where you're going beyond like, okay, you already have to know how to run your machine inside and out. You better be able to like run in, and we do what's called master classes, where it is 2 days of intense instruction that a lot of times are covering about the material in a semester's course of a class. And so it's down and dirty. It's meant for professionals who, can only take a limited amount of time away from their actual business to redefine and continue to build their skills. And sort of in a related thing, I will pitch that the organization ASDP also has a sewing professional directory, which goes through and lays out all of those different categories of sewing types, whether it's alterations, whether it's custom sewing. And Stephanie and myself and all the other individuals that are accepting work currently in our group are listed in that directory that is on our sewingprofessionals.com webpage.
Yeah, I love the
Awesome.
website, and there's so many resources on there, way more than, I'd never visited the website, and there is just a fantastic list, even by state. And then you also have membership levels, and including a student one. So could you briefly mention the membership, and if someone was interested, what their options are to join? And then I also want to throw in the question, do you have to be a member to attend your conference, the conference in the fall?
So we have multiple levels. Like you mentioned, we have a student membership. We have a membership called patron membership, where you don't have to have your own sewing business. You don't have to want to own your own sewing business. If you're interested in just upping your sewing skills to a really high level, you just really like doing the fashion, construction, things like that. It's patron level, gets you access to discounts within the organization, but you don't have to run a business. We have an emerging level category for businesses that are just starting up and running up to the first 2 years of your business. So at a lower rate, you can get access to all the additional education content and resources, but you're not listed in that directory. You're listed in that directory if you're a full formal member and you have a sewing business that you are looking to gain clients from, then you're listed in that referral directory. And we have a lot of members that are no longer in business, and we have a retired category.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of options, and I just find it a great way to, if you are trying to expand your business or you want to get into this business, it's a great space to get that, and to get the support and help and join in and get the networking and all of that. So
and you don't have to be a member to attend the conference. It is open to the public. There's a significant price break for members, so usually there is a spot where you fit in, and then you can take advantage of those discounts. And being in Denver this year, we will also have a multi-day vendor marketplace. So it's just another, way where we're trying to get, vendors and members and just more people in the community all together in the same place to sort of keep making those connections.
Yeah, well, I want to attend because I looked up the classes and I wrote down a few classes that were interesting to me, not being a professional sewer. One of the classes is starting a home-based business. Facts about fibers and materials and textiles. There's one on video editing, like how to take photos of your garments, how to shoot a video and edit it for your business. There's one on color, there's one on coaching, there's a coaching to get more clients. So there's a lot of really great classes that for business in general, that I thought were just fantastic, and I want to go.
We are so excited. The full brochure comes out May 15th. And, you know, it's just one of those years where it's like, oh, do you want to start taking bets which classes are going to fill up first? Because it's just this year in general, like coming out of the pandemic, it's the first year my business has been really busy. And the first year that I've had to really start turning people away this early in the year. And I'm so excited for this fall to come to start taking all those classes.
So one more question before we go. So you're the president of this organization. So what do you do at the conference? Do you yourself do a class or kind of a talk or a panel, or do you just kind of run around and participate and make sure everything's, you know, going well?
Probably all of the above. I'll be doing a lot of running around. It'll definitely be my job to try and help solve as many problems as efficiently as possible. It's one of the things, our group is run by a volunteer board, so none of us are paid to do our job. We are trying to run our businesses and do all the work for this association. Out of the goodness of our hearts, out of the personal drive we feel towards, you know, bringing this forward. So a lot of it is all hands on deck. And even Stephanie is, you know, involved in, you know, helping us get to where, you know, we have all the teachers arranged, we have all of the venue taken care of, that we've planned for the fabric tour that's going on. And all of us really are invested in making sure everyone that attends gets the most out of it they can.
Sounds fantastic. Sloan, did you have any other final questions?
I could ask Jen a million things, but I'm going to save it for the interview. So
Awesome.
Yes, sounds great.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jen and Stephanie, and great to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah,
better.
nice to meet you, Stephanie.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
time and